Okay, it's episode 30. How's it going?
Pretty good.
That's C. Kohler.
Hello.
Color.
We also have Seda.
Hi.
I'm Critzino, as usual.
Just us three?
Yep, just us three. Oh well.
What, is B-Dubs too important for us today?
No, he probably couldn't make it.
No.
Yeah, we are recording on a weird night. We normally record on Tuesdays, and it's a Monday.
Yeah, it's a Monday because, tomorrow night's apocalypse night.
The end of the world.
It'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious who's going to win.
Anyway.
I'm sitting here trying to think of, I was going to have C. Kohler add some clip into something, and I forgot what it was and what it was for. I'm pretty sure it was for Dragon Ball Z, for something.
You can tell me afterwards. It's no big deal.
I just can't remember it. Anyway. Well, I guess there was, just a tweet in news this week outside of Intruder 3, which we'll get to. But
Well, there's a couple of things.
Jason's in Japan again to talk about Fooly Cooly and other things, cool shades emoji.
So there's that Fooly Cooly might be a ways away yet, like 2018, who knows. But there's also that Sand Whale and Me thing that airs in a couple of months, so maybe something with that. I mean, that's also production IG, so same place he needs to go to.
If he was, but I feel like he wouldn't be secretive about that.
Well, maybe not, yeah. If there was something secret that he would be talking about, maybe it would be Gundam Season 2. I mean...
At this point, I don't know. I don't know if he'd be I don't know.
I think he would. Jason DeMarco loves Gundam.
Yeah. I just don't know if their ratings have been too impressive to be like, we've got to get it as soon as possible.
Well, maybe if they're good enough and the price is right.
Yeah.
Like, it makes it easy for him. Like, hey, that's 26 more episodes we can air or whatever it is. So.
But is the price really right when you have to go to Japan to get it?
I think the thing is just that, like, with Viz and Funimation, they're, based in the U.S., and I know there's teleconferencing and things like that, but Sunrise, I'm not even sure if Sunrise has much of a presence in the U.S. Like, you have to go to Japan to talk to them. Like, I remember, like, when they were recording Gundam, I saw, like, tweets from voice actors saying, like, they were visiting in Japan. So it's like Sunrise stuff. It seems like that's just how you do it. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of just inferencing here, but
no, I think you're right. I got the same impression because you're right. They had to go and broker the deal for the first show in Japan, the one that's airing now, and so maybe they're just like that. They can't just go to California or to Texas or wherever. They got to go all the way over to Tokyo just to get the deal to go through.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it could be any other thing. Who knows what he could be cooking up over there.
They've been surprising us a lot recently. I wouldn't be surprised if they got another show they're working on up their sleeve. Who knows?
You hope it's Big O Season 3, but what you're actually going to get is Bleach Blood War.
Oh, yes.
I actually wouldn't mind. As much as I'm not a fan of Bleach, not that I hate it or anything, I'm just kind of, I don't know, pessimist or just sort of, it's apathetic. Just there. Yeah, apathetic. That's the word. Thank you. Even though I'm just sort of apathetic about Bleach, I would welcome it back just to have like a finale, kind of like what they did with Inuyasha.
I could use the closure, and also it would be entertaining to laugh at.
Bleach can sometimes be entertaining.
I would do it if only to hear some of those. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Seda.
Oh, I was going to say, like, sometimes Bleach, like, I'm not a big fan of Bleach either, but sometimes it can be entertaining and just how ridiculous it can be, and how, heck, we talk about sometimes how other shows can be really bleachy in terms of, like, it's almost become its own adjective and how it does its dialogue and shonen and battles and all that.
Yeah, and I would love it if only just to hear some of those ridiculous names spoken aloud.
I don't know them.
I can't remember any of them.
I know people were talking about it, and there's like I guess like a group of characters that have like names like there's from every letter of the alphabet.
So You know how Kubo basically, remember he outright said that when he doesn't know where to take a story, he just starts inventing characters.
Yep.
So there's an entire evil organization with enough characters to fill out the alphabet.
And they have but the names are dumb. They're like goo 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 gaga and stuff like that. I don't know what they are.
There's one character named Nana Non Najakoop.
Yeah, there you go.
The legend.
I'm assuming he's the letter N.
And then there's this one guy named Robert.
They'll just say these names in like the most straight, plain-faced, seriousness. Like that kind of reminds me of JoJo. And I know it's not. This is a little bit different, but in JoJo, when JYB, JoJo is like, "Take care, Speedwagon," and just says it like, how can he say that with a plain face?
How many takes of that did Johnny Young Bosch have to do to not burst into laughter?
Yeah, that's especially really deliberate, and it works because of the tone of that show.
Oh dear, there it goes.
Sorry.
I think color is malfunctioning. You gotta charge your batteries or something.
My headset's messed up. I just said that it works in JoJo because of the tone. You can't get away with goofy names in Bleach if everything's supposed to be serious.
Mm-hmm.
So,
anyways, I don't remember if we talked about this last week, but another piece of news is that Funimation finally confirmed that they are dubbing Super.
Oh fuck, yeah, I forgot about that.
I mean, they haven't really given any details at all, but I mean, this is kind of it was basically a foregone conclusion, who else would do it? And unless it was a big money thing and Netflix was dubbing it themselves or something, but yeah, so Funimation is doing Super. No other
Yay! It'll be a great mainstay on Toonami after Bukai finishes.
Yeah, so I don't want to speculate too much on what happens here because we've been doing this for years or more than a year. But maybe what they'll do is they'll have it air first on Nicktoons or whatever, maybe this next year, and then maybe later they'll just bring it over to Toonami later, just all right. I mean, so it wouldn't be a premiere on Toonami; it would just be here it is now on Toonami. Finally,
it would certainly be the uncensored premiere.
Yeah, people. I saw some people say that maybe it wouldn't be censored on Nicktoons or whatever, and I don't know, maybe they've become more lax, but even DBZ Kai, even just anything that was a punch to the face or anything, they replaced a couple of frames with flashes. And it wasn't just really brutal things. It was anything that was a physical impact between characters, all these flashes removing those frames. So
Christ. Why? What the fuck did they think they were getting?
And also, anything that mentioned dying or killing or death had to be rewritten. So,
what the fuck show did they think they were getting? It's man, I don't know. Do you think this show about Dragon Balls that bring people back from the dead is going to have people dying in it?
But, anyways, or maybe they'll do a double up with Kai. Who knows? But
if they did that, I would hope they would get 11:30 back because I couldn't just dropping a show slot just to double up on Dragon Ball Z. It's ugh.
I agree.
Dragon Ball Z is whatever, but Dragon Ball Z is whatever. You don't want to overload.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, I totally agree. If they gave us a 30-minute block back just to add that show, I think it would be okay to have double DBZ. But I would hate to have double DBZ when we have to lose a premiere.
Oh yeah, fuck that. I'd rather they just not show Bukai if that's the case.
Right.
But if I was certain I could get both, there's no reason I would run one or the other or both at the same time because have that solid lead in for even more time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't waste valuable weeks of Super airing it alongside Bukai, which will already get good ratings, and you don't really need more.
Well, I guess the only other big news this week that I had written down was, of course, the beginning of Intruder 3.
Yeah!
So, apparently, this wasn't exactly clear, but I guess there's supposed to be sandstorms all the time, and then For a moment, there wasn't any sandstorm, so Tom decided to go out and chill out on the cliff for whatever reason.
As opposed to every single bump we see of the Vindication base where it's like, clear skies!
Yeah, well, he did have a reason. He was angry about last night's karaoke.
I missed that. And then
go ahead, continue.
As soon as he says the weather is perfect, the weather is no longer perfect, and then there's like a giant storm cloud approaching him. And then he gets up.
And suddenly the dune worm comes up and it's like, spice!
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, they're really milking that dune, aren't they?
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously the Intruder 3 ends with the like, hey look, here's a new spaceship.
I hope so. I'd love to get them back out in space.
They'll find a spaceship like in the sand.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
What if they
would like blow the sand off it?
What if they find an old Absolution?
I like that.
What if they find like the first Absolution?
That'd be like Twilight Zone, like.
Well, it like crashed and they didn't know where it was, and then it just happened to be on this planet. Which, by the way, the name of the planet they're on, they said it's called Shogo 162.
Yeah. That's a planet name.
Well, I just thought I'd mention it because I don't think I'd heard that before.
But I'm not sure what the state of the Toonami canon is, if they could actually find an old Absolution. But
well, I mean, we do know that old Toms can show back up. So
wasn't Tom 4 destroyed by the Intruder 2?
I think what they did with that one is they like. Oh, I guess there was a comic for that. I think I remember like flipping through it, and it was really bad.
I feel like they've mentioned a new comic, and it's like, wait, what?
Oh yeah, they mentioned that there's some guy who has done some comic stuff in the past. Wrote both Intruder 3 and a comic that goes with it. I don't know like when that happens. Like, I just saw like Jason DeMarco like retweeted or something. But anyway,
whatever.
I think the animation in this one's I'm liking it more than the stuff that was in Intruder 2.
Yeah, Intruder 2, like he looked really floaty, like, and I guess he was on a spaceship, but it just looked like the physics just looked a little bit awkward, like not consistent. Or this looks a little bit, and I mean, I'm sure that's really hard to do in CG animation, especially when you're like just doing it on a really low budget, moonlighting it.
If it's the same guy who did it last time, I think he's gotten a lot better.
Yeah. Well, I know last time they were literally moonlighting it. Like this person wasn't getting, or maybe he was getting paid to do it to some extent, but he was doing it like in his free time away, so it was just, but yeah, I'm sure he's just gotten a little bit more familiar with, the models he's made or whatever, however CG animation works. So
I do wonder if maybe the budget per episode is higher this time just because there's less episodes. I'm certain the budget is probably lower overall, but spread across fewer episodes. So
wait, how many are there? Just 3 or
just 4?
4.
3 more.
Because Intruder 2 was 7.
Yeah. I'll tell you the only.
But I wonder, did they really?
Go ahead.
Sorry, there's a little bit of delay, so it gets a little awkward when we talk over each other. But I wonder if they decided to do Intruder 3 simply because of like ratings, because I know when Intruder 2 they first were announcing it. I'm pretty sure he actually denied, like, no, this isn't an attempt to get ratings in November, where ratings are usually a little bit lower. But last year, November's ratings were, like, good. And I don't know if they attributed that to Intruder 2 and, like, hey, maybe this is worth it to do it, to spend some money and some effort to making this little mini-series to get people to watch in November. Like, is that, like, a primary reasoning why they do this? Or
it seems odd. I feel like they haven't advertised it nearly as much. Like, it's just kind of like, Intruder 3!
Yeah.
What's happening?
I guess the main reason is just to sort of keep the block fresh by changing out the bumps and stuff.
Yeah, it also gives them an excuse to, like, I know before Intruder 2, they just kind of changed the packaging, just kind of, we're going to change it this week, and now here's the new stuff, and now it kind of, like, just puts a little bit of, a silly, fun story to it, so.
Speaking of the bumps, I like them. They did something very similar with Intruder 2, where it's just there's nobody at the console and you see like the screen. But what I really makes me appreciate is that I kind of wish all the bumps had the screen like that.
Yeah,
because that kind of reminds me of the old Toonami.
Yeah.
Although maybe I'm Did they wait? Maybe I'm remembering it wrong. When they do have the bumps in between shows, do they show the screen?
It kind of like zooms in on it.
Oh, that's right.
Like shows it briefly and then zooms in, and then like after a second, it's basically just a full screen, clip of the show. So it is a little different now, where they show the console the whole time, and it's zoomed out too. So that's a part of it.
I think that's what it was. It's further away, and it just kind of reminds me of like classic Toonami, where they had the screen was kind of in the background, and you see this picture on it. Yeah.
Yep.
I miss the brilliant guy from last year.
Like during the,
because they had him at the end of the at the first lineup promo this year, and I was like, please just keep him forever. Just end every lineup promo with brilliant.
But I remember that was during Intruder 2 when they had like the slightly altered audio and like the red warning or whatever it was across the screen.
Yeah, and there was just one bump where it was just like brilliant. Like they loved that brilliant guy for some reason.
You did too.
I loved it.
One last thing. So according to the schedule right now, on November 26th, it's a normal lineup. That's the Saturday after Thanksgiving.
That's weird.
Yeah, so normally this lineup is from their XML table on their website. Normally, if it's an abnormal lineup, they leave it blank for quite a while, and then they announce what it is or whatever they're showing instead, and then they fill it in later. But it shows the normal lineup now, so it's normally when that happens, it's not changed from then. But that'd be weird to not have a Thanksgiving marathon, especially after having a marathon like a couple days before Halloween, which I would think would be even less like useful for them.
Yeah, so, it doesn't make much sense.
Is it maybe it's because of the Intruder thing?
Yeah, maybe they just figure, hey, enough people are going to be watching for Intruder that we could just show our normal premieres. I mean, that's kind of that seems a little bit loose, but maybe that's what they think. But
also,
I guess maybe they didn't want to have the finale of Intruder during a marathon, but they did that last year.
Well, last year it wasn't the finale, or was it? Oh, yeah, it was, because it was like the first December marathon was the finale last year. So
it was happening during the Intruder.
Well, Intruder last year I think was like it was 7
final
weeks.
7 weeks.
It was like 4 weeks in November and 3 weeks in December, and I'm pretty sure like it it aired during the Thanksgiving marathon, and I think it ended on one of the December marathons. So it's just, anyways, right now it shows a normal schedule. So
well, hopefully it stays that way.
I don't want it to, because then I'll have to miss it.
Yeah, well, I'm actually not going anywhere for Thanksgiving this year, so I'll be able to watch it. But it's kind of a, yeah, I mean, like that's like the one weekend where I think the marathon is maybe most like appreciative, even because if you're spending time with family, and especially if you're like don't get to spend a lot of time with them, like, do you really want to watch it on a Saturday night?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I might have to be like, sorry, Mom, I can't come up for Thanksgiving.
But would you really? I mean, like, I guess maybe if you're out of town or something. But like, I mean, it's on at like midnight.
Yeah.
Well, my mom lives in the middle of goddamn nowhere, Pennsylvania, and she doesn't have cable or internet. She doesn't have anything.
Wait, no internet in today's day?
Nope. Really? She's in the middle of goddamn nowhere. Satellite's the only option, and cable, and yeah, she would have to do satellite TV and internet.
Mm-hmm.
And even that is spotty.
I used to live in Iowa, and like places like DirecTV do huge business because that's like in like all the rural areas, you can get basically all those customers because they don't have any other option if they want cable. I mean, you can do antenna, but even then, that doesn't work very well. So, anyway,
I guess we should move on to the block because we have Dragon Ball Z Kai. Dragon Ball Z Kai episode 92. Tears for an android. Gohan's inner rage bursts forth. Seda.
Hi. How's it going?
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Interrupting my intros?
I always forget. Like you pause for just a couple seconds, and I feel like, well, maybe I should just start talking.
That's the insert theme music here.
Yeah, wait until he says the name of the show and then begin. That's the easiest.
I've got to wait till I finish the episode title.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, fucking filler is shit. Like, I don't. All they had to do was have him blow up Android 16's head. Like,
I don't think it was that bad.
The mini cells is just like, okay, really?
The Cell Juniors aren't filler. I mean, I know some of the maybe some of the fighting was, but like having Cell Juniors beating up on the people, all the guys just sitting there on the cliff. Pretty sure that's not filler, but I'm sure like in the manga, it was probably just maybe a couple of panels where they like made it a whole episode, which is, every anime will do that. So,
I mean, it still feels super fillery.
Yeah, and Dragon Ball Z at this point, like I know they cut out a lot of stuff, but sometimes it does still feels like it drags. So this is just, they decided to make this whole thing one whole episode, and it might have been maybe more than enough, but.
The best thing about this episode, I mean, there's a couple other things I want to talk about, but maybe the best thing about this episode was, oh my gosh, for the first time ever, shortened Dragon Soul.
And it sounded so much better.
Oh my gosh, so much better.
Like they cut out all of the bad parts.
Well, most of the bad parts. It's still not great, but they cut out a lot of the bad stuff. But
I wonder if it's possible that they will stay that way just for JoJo.
Well, clearly they've decided to air full roundabout the entire way through.
Yes. Yeah, so they cut Dragon Soul because of Intruder.
Oh, that's true.
But they decided they still had enough room to keep roundabout full.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they cut the opening to JoJo, but
I think you're right. I think after Intruder 3, it will probably start getting more Dragon Soul again.
Well, after Intruder 3, there's only going to be like 3 more episodes or something like that, and then Dragon Ball Z Kai Buu Saga, maybe we're all assuming.
I still am of the mind that they're just gonna move right into that and not even mention it.
Just roll right into it as if those episodes existed as dubbed.
Yeah, and people will be like, "Hey, where's the promo?" And he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Does Buu have the same opening?
No, it has a different opening, and maybe now they'll just decide to go with the Japanese opening rather than dubbing it. That was just kind of a weird experiment that Funimation did, like in 2008-9 or whatever it was.
Yeah, back when they dubbed all their openings, and then they were finally told to stop that.
Well, I wonder if part of it just had to do with like licensing. Like maybe it's just cheaper for us to sing our own opening and like legally calls it something different than licensing. I don't know how the license works, but I don't know. Maybe that was, I don't know. I'm hoping that when Bukai starts, they just keep the Japanese opening, because I don't. Some of their
it was probably it might have been.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, it might have been part of the whole like Disney XD bit, because I doubt Disney XD wants to air a Japanese opening.
Maybe.
But I think they clearly dubbed the openings far past the point where it aired on Disney XD.
Well, like for example,
or did the whole thing air on Disney XD?
I think we're mixing up Dragon Ball and Naruto. Dragon Ball was never on Disney. It was Nicktoons, and then it was like WB Kids or whatever became the CW. Like,
yeah,
Disney XD was Naruto, which
okay.
I don't know what they did with the Naruto openings. I think they might have just cut them. But
entirely.
They should have used that German one.
Well, I know like Yokai Watch, which airs on Disney XD. I'm pretty sure it's the opening dubbed, like Dragon Soul. Like they just took the Japanese opening and dubbed it. So
yeah, they clearly think that if little kids hear Japanese, they'll be like, "What the fuck?"
Or probably more the parents saying like, "This is Japanese, it's weird," and like, but if you take out the Japanese song, it's like, "Oh, not so weird." I don't know.
Oh, look, here's Popo. This is totally fine.
I don't even know what Cartoon Network does with Pokemon. Like,
they have English openings on Pokemon.
Yeah.
Okay, those are dubbed too. Okay.
Well, I don't even know dubbed. I think they're just different songs.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I know there's
entirely different
I
songs.
know there's the classic Pokemon opening, which I know was totally different, but I don't know what they were doing with modern Pokemon.
No, they've been making up songs ever since.
Oh, okay.
No joke, the original Pokemon opening is like maybe the greatest anime opening of all time, and it's not even Japanese.
No, it is. I think, isn't it the same music though?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
I'm not familiar enough.
It is so butt rock that it can't be the original
Okay.
music.
Anyway,
So,
so this episode on Dragon Ball Z Kai, unless there's something else you wanted to say about openings.
yeah, no, I'm ready to continue with the DBZ talk.
Android 16 was just like, "Yar, I be just ahead."
Now I don't. First of all, has Gohan actually ever met 16 like before this, like even for a second?
I forget.
I kind of don't think so.
Yeah, I think he must have only met him like very briefly, like right before the tournament. Like, oh hey, here's one of the androids that I heard about.
Is it something like maybe they cut it out of, maybe he did in DBZ and they cut it out?
Because let's see, they meet Android 16 when he first awakens, but like Gohan wasn't there, right?
No. No, yeah, he was.
I don't
Was
remember.
Gohan there when Krillin failed to blow up 18?
No, I don't think so.
I think that they were on the lookout at that point, or he was searching with.
Yeah, but at that point they were in the time chamber.
Huh. Yeah, he has actually no reason to feel remorse for this character who he A, may not have ever seen, and B, even if he was, why would he even know that he's good?
Like I can sort of understand. Like I can feel bad about a character, like someone dying and I don't know them. Like it's still a really sad thing. But when it's like an android, like
and like that's the thing that gets you to go Super Saiyan 2.
Yeah.
But you're forgetting, he loves animals.
Yeah.
Like it literally just there's like just like this 1 minute long sequence where he's just imagining a bird.
And
like
he says it. He says the stupidest line in the whole show. He's like, "I love the animals." It's so dumb.
And then the replacement music is just like during the transformation scene at the end is just kind of garbage.
The soundtrack in Dragon Ball Z is so bad.
So like I know my perception is skewed. So obviously I grew up with the Falconer score. So even I have some soft spot for it, even if it's just nostalgia. But like, and I like the Yamamoto score of the original Kai, even though it was plagiarized. Because it was plagiarized, it was good. And I don't remember exactly what track they used at this point, but I'm sure it was better than what we had here. But like this I don't know how you pronounce it, Kikuchi score. I know it's from the original Dragon Ball Z, but it's like truncated. Like they only have half the soundtracks and they're misplaced where they are actually played. And it's just awful. So that's actually one thing I'm looking forward to with Bukai. Even if it's just standard fare music, it's got to be better than this.
Like just by song placement, it'll be far better.
So did they get the Count from Sesame Street to come in and write this script this week?
Oh yeah, like the reporter is just taking
seven little cells. Ho 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 ho.
It's more like That's how the Count says it.
Yeah.
Like he takes forever. He's like 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, come on.
And then another character does the same thing.
Cell counts them again. Like
he's like, wait, what? I gotta make
Cell counted first, and then this is the weirdest type of padding, I guess. Just having to take forever to point out these obvious things. But
and then there's just this big comedy scene of everyone getting beaten up by these tiny cells, and it is very comedic. I'm sorry.
I didn't notice this, but one person posted in the thread like they look like they're dancing rather than fighting, and like I was cracking up because it really looked like they were like the way they looped animations and things like that. It really did look like they were dancing at times.
Speaking of the animation, though, I do want to say it looked really great in this episode. Like, it's definitely above its normal animation level. And in fact, before I stop, I would say that I think the whole block this week, every show had great animation.
Well, Hunter x Hunter was a recap.
Well, except for the recap, of course. But I mean, like, every show had awesome animation this week.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really notice it here because I was just like, oh, wow, little cells. Boring.
I totally noticed it. Like, it was clear that, like, it was definitely better than the kind of crappy stuff that they normally have. And, like, they even the characters looked more on model than they should have normally looked in previous episodes where they kind of get janky. It looked really good.
I agree. No, I agree that they were a little bit more creative, and there is still some looping animation, but it was a little bit more creative in like how they actually did like punches and dodges rather than what they normally do.
Yeah, camera angles were more dynamic.
Yeah. And what else? Oh, this is kind of a spoiler, but like I liked how the dialogue specified this. Gohan's thinking to himself, and he's like, besides Trunks, if anyone dies, they can't be brought back with the Dragon Balls. It's like, well, I wonder who might die.
They got to really make sure you know that.
Technical thing. I hear myself echoing, so I don't know if someone's microphone is maybe close to their speaker.
I'll try turning down mine, and you tell me if it's better.
So I don't know if my echoing will come across. I don't know if my echoing will come across in the recording earlier, but I heard it. I still hear myself echoing a little bit, but
I've got mine super low now, so it can't be me.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Episode 3, Youth with Dio. Seacoler, how awesome is this fight?
It's pretty damn good. I've got my notes here from the episode, and the very first thing I've written here is hype as hell. That episode was freaking awesome. I love Vampire Dio. He's freaking cool, cutting people's heads in half.
Throwing bodies at people, and they just split the fuck apart.
And then he does the most swag walk up a wall I've ever seen.
That's one of those iconic things. Like, I think I knew about the wall walk before I even knew what JoJo was. Like, oh, this is where it's from. Like, I'm pretty sure I've like seen this, like, as like some sort of like iconic moment.
I also had no idea that it was possible to not know there was a character named Ario Speedwagon. But like, I know at least two guys were like, "What the fuck? That's his name."
You guys had teased it too much. I had heard it already that there was a character named Speedwagon. I didn't know his full name though. It's Robert E.O. Speedwagon.
Yeah, I know there's a couple of the band name. Like Araki is a huge, from what I understand, he's a huge music fan, like of English and British music.
Spoiler alert! Everything.
He named a bunch of characters after it, but I know like some of them in the dub they had to like tweak, so they're not quite as referenced as they were before. But they can still call this guy Speedwagon.
Well, because Speedwagon was a car brand before it was a band.
Okay.
And so now it's just like, yeah, whatever.
But I know there's some later that I think are not, like, they had to change the reference.
Well, that doesn't really start until part 3, because in parts 1 and 2 he's more subtle. Like, he doesn't just straight up copy a song name word for letter. Like
I love the scene where like Dio is he's like crocodile's tears, like, I'm so sorry, please forgive me. And then I love how Speedwagon just like shows up out of nowhere, and I love how he says, I don't know what he says in Japanese, but he's like, "Look alive," and in his usual corny voice, and he's just like going on a spiel. You know, and I just love his whole like character. And like besides the voice for Dio, like Patrick Seitz, I think he nails it as Dio. I love the voice for Speedwagon. I just think it's like perfectly corny, like not enough to be annoying, but just kind of fit Speedwagon.
Like he lights a match just to talk and then blows it out again.
Yeah. And again, more awesome dialogue. Here's a couple of lines I wrote down that I just thought were great. Again, I gotta commend the translators on this for being so creative. So like at one point, JoJo, he basically steps up and he says, "If Dio wants a fight, I mean to give him one." which I think is so cool how that sounds. And then someone else later in the episode says, "Thank you, brother, for this great boon." I'm like, wow, oh, that's such cool dialogue.
Like, we got the Hamlet reference, which I'm sure was there in Japanese too. But
like, I like how we just like, what's behind this curtain? Oh my god, fire!
like, I'm surprised the fire like doesn't like the curtain totally obscured it. Like, just one of those silly things.
So like the fight reminds me a lot of the final like fist fight in Die Hard.
Yeah,
it's just like an all-out brawl. It's like it's not like it's not like over choreographed, or it's not like finesse. It's just tackles and fire and
blunt force until somebody stops moving.
I also liked he put like the whole mansion is on fire. They're falling down a pit, which seems to for some reason be like 30 meters tall or something. And then the narrator just kind of like comes in, like it kind of fits the cheese of the show, where he's like, and he kicks off the wall, and I don't know,
right onto the statue.
Yeah, that's what it ultimately does. Is like, and he kicks, and it places him above the JoJo family guardian. It's just, I like how he's just kind of like narrating, kind of this cheesy voice. And
is the narrator someone we're supposed to know?
No,
I don't think it's a character.
Okay. It's literally just a narrator.
Okay.
It's the same voice as it's David Vincent. He's he sounds like Senketsu from or Senketsu from Kill la Kill.
Oh yeah. Huh.
Actually,
so at the end of the episode, we at the end of the episode we get. Oh, I'm sorry. Say that. He's trying to say something.
No, it's just this whole delay is kind of screwing me up. I start to talk and then we talk over each other. So
okay. Go ahead.
All I was going to say was the voice actor for the narrator. I forgot that he's the turban guy in Gundam. He's in a couple of the shows. So.
Gotcha. And then at the end of this episode, we get the post-credit scene, and it shows that Dio survived. So, I mean, just to be clear, we're still in part 1.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Part 1 is 9 episodes.
All right.
We got 6 to go.
Cool.
I was thinking of something to say about the mask, and I was something like I forget.
Well, I mean, so Dio, when he was experimenting with the mask, it was pretty obvious. In his fight with JoJo, they got blood on it, and then he saw the spikes come out. And he realized, what if I use this as a weapon? And that's kind of what he just tried that on some like street thugs. And then that was the last episode where JoJo also knew about the spikes, I think, because he did like more research on it, but he never experimented with it. So he was like, what's with the mask and what does it do? So he kind of had this monologue of figuring out what it did. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can think about with the mask.
Magical or something, but he didn't know it was vampires.
But yeah, I love this episode. It's just the combination of everything that's so good about JoJo in one episode, almost.
There's a lot of great fights this year. This and Jiraiya versus Pain and all the Straw Hats versus Auras are all running at the same time. That's great. Yeah. And then kind of nothing's happening in Gundam again.
Well, we'll talk about that next.
Okay, sure. Gundam! Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans Episode 20. Brother. Brother.
We almost got a beach episode.
Yes. I was like, oh, of course they fucking landed on a beach.
Yeah.
So
I don't want to spend too much time talking about Dio because we just go off and we hate it so much most of the time. But I will say that I felt like we learned a couple of things in this episode. One is that the Galahorn people apparently are really anti-cybernetics or anti
Well, you're going to have to go through
Cyborg.
that again because,
Oh, wasn't my voice messed up?
You
yeah.
sound like R2D2 with his battery failing.
Sorry. Okay. Anyway, what I said was, so I mean, normally every week we spend a lot of time talking about the things we don't like about IBO. So I don't want to harp on this too much or anything, but I felt like we did learn a few things this week. At least I did. So like, we learned that Gallarhorn apparently is like anti-cybernetics. So I didn't know that. I don't think I noticed that before. And then we've got this new character who we're calling Santa, who wants to be the prime minister of a thing called Arbro.
Yeah.
Arbrow.
Arbrow was one of the countries, like super countries of the New World. I forget which one, but it was one of them.
Yeah. And then we do know now that, yes, it was all about they're trying to deregulate the mining of half metal, a.k.a. hair gel, and that Saverin hung himself. That was basically it. And Biscuit got really mad.
So I like Biscuit, like as a character. Like he just seems like he doesn't really fall into like a really common archetype. He just, he's kind of like a friendly, thoughtful person. He's not like overly cool, but he's not like especially like overly nerdy either. He just kind of like this, cog in the wheel, kind of like this, contributor to everything, even though he's not like the leader or anything. But the whole thing with his brother, like, doesn't really, like, I'm not really empathetic towards it because his brother didn't earn it. Like,
he seemed like a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was basically a Gallarhorn like sympathy, and they kidnapped Atra thinking it was Cordelia, and like I don't really feel like there's any reason to be sympathetic towards his brother and to feel for him. Like I don't like obviously I'm not like gleeful that he hung himself as a character, but just kind of like, well, okay, this isn't very impactful to me. So
I also liked that the whole Dort thing just, finished positively off screen.
Oh yeah, it's like as soon as they leave Dort, like, oh, apparently they have the negotiations are like underway and successful, and I kind of felt like the whole I don't want to harp on this too much again, but like the whole revolution to begin with kind of felt like it was hand waved. Like, what are they even like revolting against? Like other than like the very broadest strokes of oppression, and now it's like been hand waved in resolution. Like, oh, now things are better. We'll just take your word for it. Like, like I feel like I'm taking their word for it on a lot of things. Like apparently things were bad, and now apparently things are better. Like so.
I feel like this new Santa character, who's by the way he's called Machinai. I'm kind of getting like a Star Wars prequel vibe from this guy, where he's trying to become like the head chancellor, the emperor, basically.
Well, he already was, and he got kicked out.
Yeah, but now it feels like he's trying to use them to get back. Because I don't get any kind of like this guy's a good guy kind of vibe from this guy.
No.
Here's a random aside regarding Space Costco. The Clickhole just came out with a thing. Major headache. The Blue Angels got trapped inside a Costco, and no one knows how to get them back outside.
Hey, what?
You know what Clickhole is?
Oh, I didn't hear you say Clickhole. I didn't get it. So,
Anyway.
parody site, yeah.
Space Costco.
Tewaz can get him out.
But yeah, so I guess there was a confrontation between Orga and Biscuit, and now Biscuit, hearing about his brother's death, basically wants to go like the extremely safe route. Like we don't like let's go as little conflict as possible, and then Orga's like basically the other route. No, we have to take chances, or else what's the point? So I guess that's like
yeah.
But at the very end of the episode, Biscuit kind of had a discussion with Panic, the black guy. And it seemed like it was resolved. The mechanic like talked him out of it, and it's kind of one of those things like, oh, I guess that was a quick, I guess that was easy. Like it was just a quick little pep talk, and now he's kind of out of his funk, I guess. But
yeah, it kind of felt like they're just trying to build up Orga as a good leader, because he's like, yeah, if we took your route, Biscuit, nothing would change. If we take my route, our lives could get better.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't blame them.
It kind of sort of reminds me of Gurren Lagann, where JIB's character there, whose name I forget, wanted to like try to go like a safe, like really cautious route, and it was just kind of a dumb idea. And then the main character is like, no, we have to stand up, and we have to believe in ourselves, and only this way can we change things. So it's not quite that, but I got that vibe.
I did too. I mean, it's obviously a pale comparison to Gurren Lagann, but it's. Yeah. I definitely felt the same sort of scene was happening. Yeah.
Well, I've got nothing else. Oh, well, yeah, they've never seen a fish before, and they're like, "What the fuck is a fish?"
Well, they're from Mars, so it's not like that seems believable. So one more general thing is like I don't mind if the show is not mech action all the time. Like I don't mind if it slows down to do like character moments or even a little bit of politics or things like that. But I do feel like that maybe this show is a little bit overboard on the politics. Like we had this whole episode over this, and I feel like spending a whole episode on these things is almost too much. I just feel like there's a little bit of a misbalance between it.
The ratio is not good enough.
Right.
I don't want to say it needs to be like all hype mech battles. What is that?
My phone.
Sorry. Is that?
That was my ringtone.
I don't want to sound like I'm impatient and like, oh, man, there's not enough action to keep me engaged. But I just feel like, especially when there's only like 5 episodes left, like I know it's the first season too, but I just feel like there still needs to be a little bit more like actual like conflict and interest rather than this. I feel like we're still like building up, and I feel like we've been building up for too long almost. So
there's like 3 kinds of scenes in this show. There is action scenes, which are the most rare.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get the character scenes, which I agree are pretty good. And then we get the everyone sit down and talk politics scenes, which this episode had one of those. And it was just when those scenes happen, I just
yeah. And I maybe I'm giving myself too much credit here, but I don't want to say, oh, politics just bore me, but I'm pretty sure it's just like the show is the way it's doing its politics is just not very good. It's just it's like hand waving so many things that were just I feel like it's almost like they talk too much about nothing, and they need to be more specific and direct if they want to really like keep our interest in it. And also I think they have to bring it back and relate it to the actual like conflict that we do see in like the show, but they just haven't. They just keep talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know how you make politics exciting, but just having people sitting in a room talking is definitely not the way to do it.
You're
Sonic!
I heard
Sorry.
you again. I heard what you said though. Like it would be more impactful if they were if they discussed, here's the underlying conflict behind these 2 factions and why they're in conflict, and then bring it back with like maybe like a personal character motivation too. But I feel like they're just not doing a good job blending these things together. So it feels like the politics stuff doesn't really amount to much, which it makes it even harder to give it much attention.
Yeah, it feels like a something they have to do and not something that helps the story.
Right.
Hey, if you guys don't mind for a second, I'm going to unplug my headset and plug it into a different USB port to hopefully fix this issue.
That's fine.
Is that okay? Yeah. I'm going to just jump out of the call real quick, okay?
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
I've listened to plenty of podcasts where they, troubleshoot a little bit during the cast. It's no big deal.
Yeah, it's fine.
Even if he edits this out later, who knows?
Oh, I forgot to mention I ordered all the parts for PC. So that'll be fun.
Okay, I don't know if this will help.
Okay. Yeah, just for some reason, like every 6th sentence you said, you just like sound like a robot,
Sorry.
a dying robot.
You pulled a Zonic every 6 sentence.
I'll keep one of those in just because it sounds funny, I guess.
Wait, test. Hello, test. I don't think I hear myself echoing anymore either.
Maybe it was me.
It I think it was.
Sorry. All right, well, that hopefully fixes it.
Anyway, on to, I think we're probably done with Gundam, right?
Yeah, like not much happened in this episode, so that's it.
So, Hunter x Hunter. Hunter x Hunter episode 26, then and after. It's recap episode. Moving on.
Even the voice actress Erica Mendez was like, I mean, a lot of the actors, live tweet their stuff either for promotion or for fun or both.
We did learn one thing in this episode, that apparently Gene's dad has a motorcycle.
Gon's dad.
Who did I
Gon's
say?
dad, Geen.
Geen's dad.
You said Geen's dad.
Sorry.
Gon's dad is named Geen or Gene or whatever.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. There's nothing here.
I will miss the Dear Aunt Mito jokes.
So I guess the reason why there's these recaps was like this was the first season or whatever. I know it's not really seasons, but the first season of Hunter x Hunter.
They didn't think they were doing an endless shonen, but they were.
And maybe they just like, we don't know how successful this is going to be, so we just have a minimal budget, and we just kind of had to, like out of necessity, put a couple of recaps in there. And then maybe it was just successful enough that from this point on they realized, oh, we don't need these. We have plenty of viewers. We're doing fine. Maybe our budget increased and we don't have to do them anymore. So there's no more.
Anyway,
cool.
Yep, that's the last recap episode for Hunter x Hunter. Yeah.
Yay.
So let's move on to Naruto Shippuden. Naruto Shippuden episode 133, The Tale of Jiraiya the Gallant. So, he did.
It's a pretty sad episode.
Especially if you've been watching since the beginning, when like Jiraiya was one of the kind of one of the original characters. So it's one of those, like, I know Naruto does death a little bit more than say One Piece. There's more death, or even Bleach maybe.
This is the only death I really think in the series that actually resonates.
Yeah.
He's such a great character, that's why.
Well, like, the thing with, like, Asuma's death was, like, you don't really care about Asuma, but I think they built around it with Shikamaru pretty well. Like, how they incorporated it into his character. But here, it's like the actual character of Jiraiya, being killed is, I think it's well done, and the character has been around long enough, and he's been, built up well enough that we actually do feel like at least a little bit of, sadness here. Like, they just killed off a character, and he's like, and and it wasn't just, they're not just throwing him aside. They trying to do it in like this extravagant way in terms of building it into this plot here. So jumping back a little bit, they kind of built up this Pain villain, and it kind of came about a little bit too quickly, in my opinion. But as they built it into Jiraiya's, character here, and it's one of his former students, and they kind of built this mystery around him, like what exactly is Pain. And then Jiraiya basically figures it out, and we get a glimpse of it, but he doesn't tell us outright what it is.
Yeah, you'll have to wait for that.
Basically, these 6 people are 6 people that he's met in the past. Somehow they've all come back together. They all have the weird, freaky eyes. And then Jiraiya, before he leaves, or before he dies, puts an encoded thing onto the frog's back. And that's it.
And, gets to Tsunade, and she's like, I don't know what the fuck this is.
Well,
spoilers.
I have a question about that scene. So there's like a scene, and I'm sure it's just supposed to be sort of melancholy, where you see Tsunade drinking, and then she sees a frog in the pond, and then the frog swims away. Now, that's not like Jiraiya or that other frog. That's just a random frog, right?
Yeah, it's just like supposed to be just symbolism.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Kind of like
it was nice.
when you have Sasuke beating Orochimaru, it like shows like a hawk killing a snake. Like, do you see it? Do you see the symbolism? It's like, oh, come on.
Well, they did give Jiraiya's death amazing animation. Like I said earlier, animation this week was really good, and this episode looked really great especially for Shippuden.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, I think the next couple of episodes they kind of come back down to earth a little bit with the animation. But there's a really nice episode coming up in like 2 months or something like that. That's one of the best animated ones.
Wow.
Anyway, so I think this is I don't know exactly how they lined these things up, but this kind of sub arc with Jiraiya here is kind of like the beginning of the Pain arc, and this arc is maybe not everyone's favorite, but it is generally considered to be one of the better arcs, especially in Shippuden. And I think you can kind of see why. Like it's not like A+ material, but it's at least seems to have a little bit of competence to it. So there's some good stuff coming up. Decent stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, as someone who's never seen it, I am generally intrigued by this character or set of characters. I don't know what the situation's going on here. I don't know how they can all have like the most powerful eye hack power in the world. That's interesting. And like somebody said like a week or two ago when I was on, they said that like we're basically watching like the most powerful characters in the show fight right now. And so it seems like a big deal.
So what do you guys think about the fight overall? Because I think it's really good.
I liked it.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit different, like, because, I mean, most of it was Pain summoning things, and then when he basically like tricks them by summoning the frogs to kill them. He thinks I guess he did kill them. He didn't even just think that he killed them. He actually like killed these 3 Pains, and then he just didn't realize that there's more than 3, and then somehow they're back. And he does manage to take out one, like, for good, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he takes out the guy who was summoning the animals.
Yep.
One of the
two
guys
of them look similar.
One of the guys has freaking missiles.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Me ninja, me shoot missiles out of rocket launcher arms.
It kind of reminded me of Bleach. Like one of the Soul Society people is like, my Bankai is a missile. Like, really?
The only thing in this episode that I didn't like, really, is it's another example of where Shippuden gets like they do like a weird sort of translation with honorifics, and you had that old frog guy kept calling him Jiraiya boy. And he says it like 50 times in the episode. It's like, Jiraiya boy, what are you doing, Jiraiya boy? And it's like, I get that that's probably like, I don't know what it would have been, but it would have been like Jiraiya-kun.
Yeah, I wonder if it's Jiraiya-kun. And I think it kind of, I think it makes sense to say it sometimes, because like everyone else like considers Jiraiya like a sage or a mentor, and here's this frog who considers him a boy or a child.
Yeah.
So maybe what they should have done is just have him say it sometimes, but not every time.
Right. I think I'd have been okay like once or twice, but when he said it every single time, it was like, you're just being too literal.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. I mean, outside of that, I thought it was a good episode. Again, I don't have like a huge history with Naruto, and I could tell that there was a pretty classy ending for this character.
I mentioned this last week, but I kind of liked how he was like, at least the beginning of his little monologue to himself was talking about like how everything he's done was a failure. And I kind of like that I appreciate that a character can be built around failures. And I mean, not that everything he did was actually a failure, but just kind of like how he had so many that he considered himself a failure. And I just kind of thought that was really interesting, because there's so many characters that like, they either take it to the extreme where they have like no self-esteem at all, like, man, I just suck, or they just like,
I'm the best.
They're just so bad. Yeah. So it seemed genuine and natural. And the one line that actually I kind of felt like was like especially like almost like it hit me a little bit was he said like, I failed to protect my mentor and my student. It kind of brings in this thought of like generations, like he was, a failure to someone else, like the person who taught him, like he wasn't able to, he wasn't able to like return the favor to his teacher, and then like he was a failure to the people he was supposed to be teaching as well. And it just kind of like this, it almost like brings almost a thought of like loneliness in a sense.
Yeah. It's also very apt for this show because this show has a lot of themes regarding around generations. It's like Naruto and his kids, or his friends, they're all the new upcoming generation. You had the previous generation. I kind of wonder if Kishimoto killed off Jiraiya because he was a more cool character than his main character.
Well, I mean,
I'm trying to think if there's any other character that, like, I don't know, just
he'd have to kill every single character.
Well, I mean, Rock Lee's pretty cool,
and he got crippled.
Rock Lee is just underutilized. Like, this is one of those big things, more overview things. But like, they kind of build him up as the effort character. Like, he has, he's all about effort. It's not about talent. And then they just kind of it's not that they like even like kill the character or even like a character, like they don't even murder. Like, how do I put this? It's not even like a figurative killing of the character. They just don't even use him at all. They just kind of forget about him.
In a world full of bullshit ninja magic, one man will kick people in the face.
but he got his spin-off show, so
I need to watch that.
And that seems like the type of, and it looks like it's self-aware. So it's,
yeah,
like, of all the things that Naruto does poorly, which is several things, it seems to be a little bit self-aware in some of them. But semi spoiler, we do go back to like a Sasuke Shippuden thing coming up here, but I think it's a little bit better than what we had before. So
yeah, we still got the Sasuke banner.
Yeah, I know, and that banner is still appropriate. That banner is still appropriate.
It was just an interlude for Jiraiya.
Yep.
Is Karen still around? Or Karen?
Karin is how they pronounce it, I guess.
Karin.
Because they can't be Karen. That would be stupid.
Yeah, I guess that does sound stupid.
Like, you can't.
Well,
you can't call your villain just regular Pain. That would be stupid.
Well, they kind of do the Japanese R sound. It's like Karin,
Oh, okay.
I guess Pain, the English word, just sounds cooler in Japanese, but here it sounds fucking stupid.
Yeah, it's like calling your bad guy evil. I'm evil. Hello, Mr. Evil.
Shit! Murder von Satanstein has the Chaos Emeralds!
Pain
anyway.
While I think a lot of Pain's like manners and I think he's kind of like almost over evil, like comedically evil, especially with his like I'm a god. He does feel like threatening. like
he can actually back up the god thing a bit.
Yeah, he reminds me of Anaru from One Piece.
Yeah.
Who could also kind of back it up.
Yeah.
He actually just seems like he's not just some, like, this guy actually is like, I mean, at this point you're actually curious, like, I wonder how they're actually going to like beat this guy, because he seems like he's like really powerful and kind of, this guy has some really crazy abilities, and how do they, he seems like a threat, and he kind of seems like a final boss in that sense. I know he's not.
Maybe should have been the final boss. Probably should have been the final boss.
Like, Orochimaru was more of like maybe like an interesting villain, and kind of had like maybe a more interesting personality in a sense, like kind of his creepiness and things like that. But I guess he did feel like a threat at one point, but I don't know. It just feels like Pain is maybe not as interesting, but maybe more has like the frame of being like a supervillain than Orochimaru did. I don't know. So they both have their qualities. Although Orochimaru was that one is more of a figurative character murder. He becomes more of a joke villain. So anyway, that's enough for Naruto.
Yep. Let's move on to One Piece. One Piece episode 367. Knock him down. Special attack. Straw Hat docking. Tactics 15. The greatest tactic.
Amazing.
I'm like surprised that I know apparently it only shows up in this episode, like as a joke. But I'm surprised. I haven't seen One Piece past this, but I have like seen and heard and just a lot of the events or characters or whatever that happens, at least to like a brief amount. Like I never knew that they did this like weird jokey transformation combined thing.
But like, Robin just shuts it the fuck down.
Why is it Tactics 15, by the way?
Because it's funny.
Do they have Tactics 1 through 14?
I assume maybe, but also it's funny just to have it be like 15.
Yeah,
it doesn't. No, there's no meaning behind it. It's just like part of the joke.
No, I understand that it's part of the joke. Just kind of like apparently they have lots of tactics like this, and they just show the one just as a joke. So, but yeah, Robin. I like Robin, and it's like perfectly appropriate for her to be like, no way, I'm not doing this.
Like she's usually the after she's the straight person of the group.
Yeah.
Like she's not completely straight because she has the super dark sense of humor, but previously it was Nami, now it's Robin, because now Nami gets really into the greed thing.
I like how even Oars is pissed off that they didn't finish it. He's like, I wanted to see the robot.
If there was a character that would be like very hesitant to have any sort of to show any sort of embarrassment like at all, it's Robin. Like the other characters can be like goofy enough that I can see them like being a part of this joke. But it totally makes sense for Robin to be like the straight.
Well, even
I have an image to maintain. I'm not doing this.
Yeah, even Zorro though afterwards was like, man, why did I do that? That was so embarrassing.
Like he doesn't even say anything. He just has this look like, wait, what the fuck am I doing?
But then they immediately break out of that and then really legitimately start kicking his butt.
And like you mentioned, there's some good animation.
Amazing.
Like the animation on Sanji's kick is so good.
Yeah.
I like Frankie's like awesome stairs building.
That was so Looney Tunes. That was cool though.
The Frankie. So I know like One Piece is there's a lot of like. I know it's a really silly show to begin with, and you kind of have to suspend your disbelief in a lot of things. But I almost feel like the Frankie like super build, super fast thing is almost like pushing the limit to how far I can suspend my disbelief in this show. Almost,
especially considering things that happen later in the series that are so much more serious.
Yeah,
you're gonna. There's a much more ridiculous Frankie built something really fast scene later in this arc.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess that's the point is that you just sort of.
I thought you hadn't seen this.
Who, me?
Yeah.
I've seen
decided to watch Ahead a while ago.
Oh.
Yeah, I watched Ahead. But I guess what I was going to say was though is that's you just have to kind of look at Thriller Bark. It's literally the comedy arc of One Piece, like the one where comedy is the most prevalent thing in the whole arc. It's meant to be goofy and funny.
That was pretty obvious in the get-go. Yeah,
I think it's probably tied with Punk Hazard for silliest arc.
I don't know. I think it's funnier than that, but anyway.
I mean, Punk Hazard has that one thing that happens.
Okay, yeah. I will say though, there was a really great scene in this episode too with Brooke.
Yeah, they just give him a scene to ham it up about milk.
He's got to get his calcium.
I found milk! Holy shit!
But it is setting up something else too, because he finds the big supply of salt. And he goes, I wonder why they even keep this stuff.
So, once again, Ian Sinclair has just completely owned the character.
I love him. Like I don't have any clue what these characters sound like in Japanese, but I love Ian's performance.
Yeah,
like great. You can hear just enough of Space Dandy, but it's clearly not Space Dandy.
At the end of this episode, we meet for, again, some guy named Kuma. He's probably important.
And your reaction is supposed to be, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
Yeah. Although I'm trying to up until this point in the series, you've not really known why it's not been revealed yet why you should care about Kuma. Like you just know that he's one of the lords.
Okay, kind of a structural thing. A long time ago, they showed like the world government, and they showed some of the other. Are these the warlord? Is that the right term?
Yeah, 7 warlords.
Yeah, so that include. So the warlords include like Crocodile, right?
Right.
Not anymore.
Well, no, he wasn't he was once, but not anymore.
That's what I mean. That's obviously.
And so yeah,
he's
the
one of
first
those
time we
seven.
saw Bartholomew Kuma, Kuma and Doflamingo was when they were like, "Fuck, Crocodile mucked that shit up, so now I have to nominate a new one."
Yeah.
I don't really. It was such a long time ago now. I don't remember it, but I remember Doflamingo went to Jaya and he talked to that pirate whose name I forget, Bellamy, and was like kind of chewing him out, like, man, like I think Bellamy,
that was the first episode on Toonami.
yeah, I think it was episode 207.
And then Doflamingo shows up in those ads for like the One Piece Dragon Ball crossover game.
Yeah. And he's another one of the warlords. I don't think they. He's another one of the warlords, right? I'm pretty sure they said that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and kind of a separate thing. Then there's also like the 4 pirate leaders.
The 4 emperors.
Yeah, and they're different from the warlords.
Yes, because they're not aligned with the world government. I don't want to say too much
about them, but yes, to answer your question,
that's Shanks, Whitebeard, and probably
Kaido and Big Mom.
Okay, I don't think they've been revealed, or at least very briefly.
They were mentioned.
I think they have. Kaido's been mentioned. I don't know if Big Mom's been mentioned, but maybe.
No. Garp said Garp mentioned all the names.
Oh, you're right. He did at the end of Water 7. He did.
Yeah,
that's right.
Oh, yeah. But Shanks and the Whitebeard guy are the ones that we kind of met more than a little.
Yes.
So
yes, you will have to wait a long time for the other 2.
I mean, I figure.
Yeah. Blackbeard is, or I'm sorry, Whitebeard. Yeah, he's one of them. Yeah.
And Blackbeard was one of Whitebeard's subordinates, and then now he's doing his own stuff. So
yeah. So the 4 emperors are different from the 7 warlords, and the 7 warlords are basically lesser versions. The emperors are greater than the warlords.
Right.
Kuma shows up, and this is really the first time we're seeing Kuma do anything, frankly, outside of him just sitting in a room.
And we don't really, at this point, I, being the only one who hasn't seen this, don't know why he's there exactly. Like, he wants something to do with Moria.
You'll
see why he's there.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe Moria's just been dicking around doing whatever he wants, and they're like, "Hey, Moria, what the fuck are you doing?" Pardon my language.
Anyway, I like that Kuma and Moria have the exact different, just the same body type, but flipped around.
Yes.
Like Moria's just a bowling pin, and Kuma's an upside down bowling pin.
Yep. Tiny legs, big upper body for Kuma, and then of course Moria the opposite.
One thing I do wonder if it's ever going to get explained is why there's these like ostensibly, why that's these characters who aren't like giants, but they have like these ridiculous body types, and they're just like randomly like 17 feet tall.
Like what the heck? What the heck is Moria?
Yeah, well, I think it's never really been clearly defined, but I mean, it most leans towards that he is just a large human.
Kuma is definitely human, but
yeah, I just feel like that there's like, in this world of One Piece, my opinion is that there are humans and there are giants, and then there's these people, a few of them, who are kind of in between.
There's like a long list of, whatever. We'll get to that.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll say too is about Kuma is I don't remember what I was going to say. No, never mind. Can't remember what I was going to say.
Is it about the Bible?
No.
Carrying a Bible.
Yep.
For some reason.
He's like, "Excuse me, do you have a moment to talk about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ?"
our Lord and Savior Enru. He's on the moon right now.
I do like that Perona shows back up and she's trying to steal the Thousand Sunny.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's literally just hand-delivering all the treasure to the Straw Hats because that's how it's going to work out.
And I liked I like what she said in this episode. It's better. The dub is better than what was in the original subtitles, where she's like, "I've been working under Moria for long enough. This isn't worth my life. I'm getting the heck out of here."
But I do like how, even if Perona might be the most interesting and fun of these like subordinates, I do like how she is still around and like doing stuff rather than it just being, like, oh, we knocked out all the subordinates and now they're gone. That just almost feels too pro forma to have like just these subordinates knocked out like one by one, and then
we'll probably have like
and they're never heard from again. Like Ryuma and then Absalon. So it's kind of nice that one of them sticks around just to break it up a little bit from the from being too formulaic. So, and I mean, she is the most fun of those subordinates anyway. I mean, so
by far.
Why not?
Awesome.
I mean, what's the alternative? Absalom or Ryuma?
I never want to see. I don't want to see Absalom ever again.
Yeah. Hogback was fun, but
the worst thing about Absalom is that not only is everything about him based on just sexual assault, it's anytime a character interacts with him, it's just they start to become about sexual assault too. Like Lola,
also just
Sanji.
You mentioned this. You mentioned this in a podcast a long time ago, but it's like almost like his joke is that he's so unfunny. Like maybe that's the joke, that he's just the most unfunny character. I don't know.
He's the absolute worst. I hate him so much.
Well, he's also just like the misfit of this group, because outside of him being a very maybe vague reference to Frankenstein's monster, like he is such a non-entity in as far as like what he provides this group. Like everybody else sort of has a purpose and he's just there.
He just wants to get married to yeah.
Fuck him.
I do remember what I was going to say about Kuma, and I mean this may be obvious, so I'm sorry if it's true or if you knew this already, Seda, but the other thing about the 7 warlords is they all have like an animal theme.
Yeah, it's I can't tell what Kuma's is. Because
I just don't know if you'd picked up on that. I'd be curious to know if you know.
I picked up on that.
Okay.
I mean, I'm trying to remember which warlords I know.
Well, the ones we've seen so far,
Morio's a warlord, right?
Yes.
I guess. Yeah.
So the ones we've seen were, Crocodile, who is now a former warlord. We've seen Mihawk, all the way back in the beginning. We've seen Kuma and Doflamingo, and we've heard Jinbei mentioned by name only.
Now that I'm kind of like familiar with how Oda like introduces things, I try to keep my eye out for like name drops, even if they seem like the most insignificant thing. But like the Jinbei one, I think it's mentioned in like Arlong Park, and that one I had totally forgotten until it was brought up.
He is like he has the reputation of being the most longest foreshadowed character ever in one.
No, I'm pretty sure that's the one character from Sebo 80.
I know there's a character named Boa Hancock who apparently was teased as a manga panel, but I don't know if there's something else you're talking about. But I think like Jinbei, I think I went back to watch the scene. I think like one of Zoro's henchmen, whatever his names are, Yosuke or whatever his name is.
Yosuke and Johnny.
I think they just kind of yelled out kind of like in a silly way once, so you almost don't take it seriously. Like Arlong is one of Jinbei's guys, and it's just like I think that's like all he says.
Who the fuck is this Jinbei character?
Yeah, you're totally right though. It's like this is a show where if somebody name drops something, you can almost guarantee it's going to come back at some point.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I love it.
On one hand, I do like that, but I don't think every story should work that way. Like I do kind of like when sometimes, like for example, in Full Metal Alchemist, they introduce and they name other countries that, like, I think there's like a scene, I know I'm going off tangent here, but there's a scene when Ed's talking to what's the Asian kid's name? I forget.
Shit. I don't know.
Ling. He's talking to Ling, and they introduce some of the other countries, and they have like, proper names and things like that, and he even goes like a brief history of them, but then like they don't actually have to do anything with the story, and I kind of appreciate some world building like that too, where not everything ties to the main plot. It's just part of the world. But One Piece is not like that, where like anything that's mentioned, and whether it's a place or a name, it's going to come up. So
still waiting on Elbaf.
Yeah.
It's also.
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's also kind of become kind of apparent that any lie that Usopp made early on is probably going to become true.
Yes. Oh, Usopp goes to amazing places later.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like, you know, like Elbaf, for example. I mean, like, it's. I'm not saying that, like, necessarily that everything that's ever mentioned is definitely going to show up in the series. I just like how Oda he plans it a bit, but then he also gives himself wiggle room so he can name drop things and then have that be useful later. And I think he does it better than any other author I've ever seen, because he seems to really kind of have a plan for things, and it doesn't feel arbitrary, and that's why I like it.
Yeah. And I mean, even things like there's that, I mean, we were talking about this, but there's like the one episode, which is the very first episode that Toonami aired, which basically introduced a whole bunch of characters at the world government, and it kind of gave some, like, just a snippet of like what these guys are like. And so like we spend this whole time, we know that they're going to come back to it somehow, rather than like say Naruto, where a lot of things just kind of come up as soon as they're needed. Like as soon as it becomes plot relevant, it shows up. Where it really feels like it's just coming out of his butt.
And it makes it feel like the world, like these things that we're seeing have real meaning. They're part of a larger world.
Right.
And not just like throwaway characters who are going to be around for an arc and then gone forever.
Mm-hmm. It also makes it so like when you're watching earlier One Piece, it still feels like the same show.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything like fits together a little bit more coherently. Then like Naruto, it's a pretty clear difference if you're watching early Naruto or late Naruto, because the rules like are slightly changed over time, and Bleach is like that too. And it's just like where they kind of come up with like new rules or maybe new like places, or you know, like things that feel like they should have been important the whole time, but they weren't because they just kind of showed up late. And where One Piece feels like everything is more stable and connected, and this foreshadowing and these introduced characters early on.
Yeah, he's clearly making up some things as he goes along, but never more than the major plot points. Like all that stuff, I think has been figured out already.
And also, I think he just does. I think any shonen author, especially, is going to have to make stuff up, but he's smart enough to know how to make stuff up and have it fit early on and like retroactively. Right. So,
like there has not been a point in One Piece where I've ever felt like it broke the rules.
Like, for example, Naruto. The fact that Naruto is apparently Jiraiya's godson, and apparently named after one of his characters. Like, if you go back and watch early Naruto, I'm pretty sure, like, when Jiraiya first meets him, he, like, doesn't act like he knows who Naruto is. And then, like, I think, like, the explanation is like, oh, he was just acting. And, you know, it's just so loose. And it's just, like, it doesn't fit. Yeah, retcon,
it's like,
basically.
Also, where the fuck was Jiraiya that whole time?
Yeah, like, you decided just to let him, like, be like an outcast this whole time. Like,
and the answer is he hadn't been invented yet.
You didn't think you didn't say, maybe I could take care of my student's son, you know, since we're so close. No. Fuck him.
Yeah.
So yeah, One Piece is really good with the foreshadowing, and so we got a little bit of foreshadowing for Kuma, and now he's here, so we're going to learn a little bit more about him, I think. Which is fun, because he kind of comes out of the blue in this arc. You don't expect him.
I was not expecting him. It was one of those things, like, I've heard, like, bits and pieces of, you know, One Piece from here on to where it is currently. So there's things like I don't exactly know when they show up, but I kind of know when some things that happen and characters that show up. But, like, I never realized, oh, I wasn't expecting Kuma to show up now, type of thing.
Right.
Like, I knew Kuma existed, and I knew he was a warlord, and I knew he was the bear one, and I knew he's supposed to be obviously a tough, like, you know, like threatening. Like, from what I can understand, he's not like a jokey one like Moria. But I wasn't expecting him to show up here. So.
Yeah, Kuma's super fucking no nonsense, bro.
Right, yeah. And it's so interesting because it's like we're all focused on the big Ors fight right now, and Gecko Moria is running around, and you're thinking that's the focus, and then suddenly this guy shows up. It really throws the whole arc into a new spin. It's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm going to let you guys talk for a little bit about children who chase lost voices. You can put in whatever theme music you want here. I don't know.
There was no opening or anything.
Yeah.
Well, there was. Okay, let me say the obvious things first. This movie looked really nice. It was
Oh
a
my
really
gosh.
great looking movie. Like, literally nothing bad to say anything about the design, the animation.
We should, expect as much from a film.
Right.
We're not used to seeing films as much on Toonami. So, but not just the fact that it was a feature-length animation or feature-quality animation. It's just that this particular feature animation is really good.
Mm-hmm. So that's and it wasn't just the animation either. It was like when they, jumping ahead of ourselves, when they got to this Agartha world, like the clothing, the architecture, the world, like all of it was just like it felt right. Like it felt coherent, and it was very pretty in the animation too. But I felt like the way things were designed too was also on point.
Mm-hmm. I've
And
not heard of this director before. I know he's pretty popular, named Shinkai, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not meant to be a slam on him or anything. It's actually, I guess, in a way, kind of praise. But he really seems to be trying to emulate the Studio Ghibli style.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if Studio Ghibli won't do it, then somebody else will.
Yeah,
and I
think he's doing a good job.
And I haven't heard much of this director either. And I mean I'm not really huge into anime. I mean, I just kind of dabble in it with this type of stuff. But I know apparently he has a recent movie called Your Name that apparently was like really, really, really like a box office like monster in Japan recently.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but this movie was apparently not as well received. So I guess let's kind of introduce things. So we have our main character whose name is Asuna. Basically, the premise, yeah.
Let's go there real quick here. SAO Asuna, haha, we get it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's just not a common name, but a name that people have.
It probably is. Yeah.
But I guess like the main initial like premise of the movie that gets things rolling is that a creature shows up. They call it a bear. I don't know why they call it a bear type creature, but it didn't look like a bear at all to me.
Well, no, that's just the townspeople don't know what it is, so they think it's a bear.
Yeah, it's just anyway. I get what you mean, but I almost felt like they were calling it a bear-like creature even after they saw it. But she kind of runs into this creature kind of randomly, and then this mysterious boy, we learned his name Shun. Well, there's
Shin and Shun, and I think Shin was first.
Shun, the U was first. And
then U was first. Okay.
She basically just saves her life. And then like she kind of like gains an infatuation for him, which is not like super surprising. If you saw some mysterious person your age, the other gender save your life, you might at the very least. But then like I don't want to like summarize the whole movie, but that's basically like that's what gets things kind of kick-started here. And she ultimately wants to find him, but instead she finds another person who looks exactly the same, named Shin. Okay, how do I want to discuss this? So one thing about this movie that I felt like was one thing I thought this movie did well was how it framed things. I felt like the general idea behind like the conflicts and where things, like how the movie is going to progress, I thought like the general idea that outlined everything was fine. But I kind of felt like if you start to talk about or discuss like the details behind like what happens first, what happens second, like it kind of feels like it's a little flat. Like things didn't really fit together very well.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. Like if I think I said this in the thread, like I didn't have a hard time following what was happening in the movie. I felt like all the characters had reasonable motivations for what they were doing.
Yes.
But I did feel like this world that they go to, which is apparently like, I don't really understand it. Like, I just know I can't tell if it's supposed to be a magical world or if it's a legitimate world under the ground. I'm not sure, or like another dimension. It's not clear.
Yeah.
But it feels like the person who wrote this just sort of found all these sort of strange, obscure religious folk tales and other things that, and then decided to make that place real and make those things that he'd read about real. And this is what that world is based on. And so it's very odd. Like, I'm not really sure like what this, and not to skip too far ahead, but I'm not really sure what this God character is, or if it's really supposed to be God. It's not clear.
Yeah.
Is that really where dead people go? I mean, I don't really get it. So, but that part, that's probably the only part of the movie I didn't like, is just sort of like, this is a weird place. They're not really going out of the way to explain it. Not that they have to, but it just felt like, okay, like they're kind of in Narnia, but it's not Narnia. It's just a weird place. And outside of that, they just sort of they go on like an adventure, and they're like two people who really had never met each other before, and they kind of bond a little bit along the way.
Yeah, so one important character was the teacher, whose name I don't remember. So like he was a part of a group called Archangel, which I'll talk about briefly in a sec. But his motive was kind of his own. It wasn't the same as the group. He wanted to bring back his wife, and this was very Full Metal Alchemist, where like that's his whole determination, is to bring back someone from the dead. And that's kind of one of those, like, no matter what, not just Full Metal Alchemist, but no matter, unless you're Dragon Ball Z, usually there's some repercussion to breaking that rule. So you kind of expect it not to be so easy as a wish. Again, I guess Dragon Ball Z is the exception. That was one of the things that, so like throughout the movie, there were a couple of sources of conflict. And early on, it was like this Archangel group and the Bottom Dwellers, what they called them. And the Archangel group, what they described them as is like they're looking at this Agartha world. And unless I like missed something, they're pretty generic on it, saying like they're just looking into this Agartha world because they feel like, well, this world has to have some secrets that can better humanity, right? Like, they didn't have like a specific, this is what we're looking for. It's just more like, we want to explore this world and we want to exploit it for our own purpose.
Yeah.
What could possibly go wrong?
They kind of talked about that when they gave the teacher gave the history to Asuna about what's been going on. And apparently all throughout human history in the past, many human beings had traveled to Agartha in the past and tried to conquer it. That's why it's so like a war-torn country in a way, that they had been invaded by none other than Napoleon and Hitler had made trips down there to try to conquer it, because they have legit magic down there. They have legit weird magic stuff that's not on the surface. And then at some point, the Agarthians figured out a way to seal their world off from the top dwellers. And I think what's going on is that this group, this military group, is just trying to figure out how to get back in.
One thing I was confused about, though, is like they seemed like almost cartoonishly antagonistic. Like when they're chasing Shin, like they even like point weapons at him, and I'm like, I'm kind of confused why they were so darn antagonistic, like evil, especially when like the teacher guy, who was kind of, he wasn't the most sympathetic character, but he was like not nearly as antagonistic as the other people. He was just like, "Hey, I want to make it here."
Yeah, I mean,
when he actually got to the world, he like cooperated enough because he knew, hey, if I cooperate with these bottom dwellers, I'm going to make it easy for myself to try to get what I want. I was just kind of confused why these other Archangel guys early on. Eventually, they weren't really a thing, but early on, they were just like pointing weapons at like the kid. I'm just like, why do you have to be such a?
Because I mean, they're I don't really think it's anything more than they're the generic sort of secret military organization. Like, I mean, it's like the characters who are trying to chase ET, and they're just like, they're going to do whatever it takes to get this power, because they literally have the power of life and death. Mm-hmm. In this world, and they're going to try to get it. And so I don't think that they're supposed to be painted in a good light at all. They're just sort of these, like, they'll do anything to get at it. And I do believe that the teacher character aligned himself with them once he found out that there was a possibility of getting his wife back, but he has no true allegiance to them. He's just using them to get in.
Okay. Another small thing, kind of jumping to another element here, was that the bottom dwellers are not fans of top dwellers. And one reason for that is that apparently top dwellers throughout the history have been trying to take their stuff, antagonistically. So of course they don't support them. But there's this other element that seemed kind of weird, and had to do with the Orochi, what was it? The skeleton people.
Yeah.
So from what I understand, the skeleton people do not like it when bottom dwellers and top dwellers commingle. Like they want to keep them separate. And they actually even kidnapped this little girl, this mute girl, because apparently she was mixed breed. Her dad was a top dweller.
Oh. See, I don't remember any of that. All I remember, I just thought that they were just sort of like monsters in that world that would attack anything.
No, they captured the girl, and they said that it was because her parents were a top dweller, or her dad. And then they captured, and this was one of the things, kind of a separate thing, they captured Asuna when she got there. And that actually made me think, well, maybe Asuna is also a mixed breed, only on the surface. Somehow these zombie things.
I think that's the case.
And then that kind of also explained why her dad died, because apparently the bottom dwellers can't live on the surface for long, so maybe he lived there long enough to father a child and then he passed away. And then that also explains why she had a rock to begin with as a memento from her dad. And so it seemed like it gave enough clues to give us that story without telling us outright. So that I kind of appreciate that they.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good bit of foreshadowing and good storytelling there. I do have a question for you, Seda, because this is something I couldn't quite figure out. They kept making it a point in the story to make Asuna question her motive for going down there. What do you think her real motive was?
Well, she ultimately said it was because she was lonely, and they kind of built it as she was looking for Shun, which on its own kind of feels a little bit shallow, even if I understand it. More to it, like with her father, she kind of had this rock and she could hear like Lost Voices, the title. Like she kind of heard this place for a long time, and I guess it was just like a persistent curiosity for her. I don't know, she was driven to figure out what these voices were that she kept hearing, and this place. So it was kind of like this combination of that, and then of course looking for Shun. I do feel like maybe there needed to be a little bit more concrete than that, but it was good enough, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. I had exactly the same reaction. I kept thinking it was going to be revealed that she was really looking for her father in the same way as the teacher was looking for his wife.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just sort of felt like I don't understand the loneliness part, because she does live with her mom.
And she even had a friend at the school, like you.
Yeah. Everyone knew her.
Yeah, and she was apparently the best at school or whatever. So, I feel like it was just almost like it needed just something a little bit more personal that we could maybe attach to as viewers, because rather than maybe just her own curiosity. It seems like a lot of that might be, if I were to put it down as one word, it was kind of just curiosity is the reason why she went down there.
I could almost go as far as to say I don't think she had a good reason. I think she just sort of stumbled along. But if she did have a reason and her reason was loneliness, I don't know. I mean, she was listening to that radio a lot, so maybe that was part of it. I don't know. That felt
I do think they maybe needed to tie her dad into it a little bit more.
Yeah.
On one hand, I feel like that would almost be too formulaic, like lost parent type thing, but maybe just a little bit more to give it a little bit more of that human push,
Yeah.
This a more purposeful reason.
Let's talk about the ending. So after they climb down this hole, which apparently leads to
God,
the place where life and death meets, which is basically like a black hole, which is like a black sphere that if you touch it, you go inside, which was very confusing. So they were like in a third place now. And this is the place where God, what is that thing called?
Well, the creatures they called Quetzalcoatl's.
Okay.
The pronunciation would never seem consistent. It's Final Fantasy VIII has a summon with this name. That's where I first heard it.
Okay.
But it's some folklore, Spanish or
I've heard it's Spanish
or
from Spanish folklore.
Yeah, Spanish or Mayan or Central
Mayan.
American.
I think that's what I heard with Mayan. Yeah,
it's one of those. It's one of those Central American type folklores. I always heard it in my head as Quetzalcoatl, but they can't say then Quetzalcoatl. Anyways, those
I've heard Quetzalcoatl as well.
Yeah,
anyway,
those are like the creatures.
Oh, go ahead.
There was more than one of them. There was like more than one of them.
Really?
And they were like they were like these. Or it seemed like there was more than one of them.
Really?
And yeah, and there were like these tall, like giant things. I don't think they had eyes, but they had like a big mouth. And at one point, they even like swallowed the characters.
Oh, that thing. Yeah. Oh, that thing. I'm talking about
those things were the Quetzalcoatls, and then there's like their god thing, which I don't know if they ever gave it a name.
This whole time. Yeah. That thing is like it's shaped like a boat, and then it transforms into like a humanoid figure with eyes all over it, and I think that's supposed to technically be God.
Yeah.
And then it apparently doesn't. It speaks with you telepathically. We never hear its voice, but the characters say it's asking them questions, and it says, "Well, what do you wish for?" Like it's going to grant a wish, and he, of course, wishes for his wife to come back, and then says, but then this God character says, "Oh, but we'll need a vessel to put it into." And this is where people in the thread were like, "Well, this guy's evil," because he immediately turns to Asuna and is like, "Here you go. This is, I guess I'm going to have to use you." But I actually felt like that wasn't necessary. I mean, that's a pretty dirty thing to do, but it also felt really like he was just in a moment of desperation.
Yeah, he was totally desperate, where kind of like it was selfish, but it was more like he was so emotionally distraught over losing his wife that
he's so close.
Do anything. So yes, it wasn't evil. It was kind of evil, but I don't know if evil is the right word for it. He was basically putting his own desires above absolutely everything else, including someone else's well-being.
Yeah.
So it's not like he wanted to conquer the world, or he wanted to, show he wanted to gain power or anything like that. He was.
Yeah, he didn't. I think he felt guilty.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. I think so.
So anyway, just to wrap it up,
one other thing, the character Shin, they meet Shin, and I feel like Shin almost wasn't written very well with his motivation. Like he initially was just kind of like, I don't even know, like he was initially just kind of, I think, playing along because he wasn't like evil, but he didn't want like anything to do with these topsiders. And he was upset that Shun was gone. And then, like, at one point, he seemed like he didn't care about them at all, but then eventually he comes to their aid. I was a little bit confused, like, what he wanted.
Well, all I took from that was that they saved his life, and so now he felt like he kind of owed them a life debt or something.
Yeah, and one of the people said in the thread that I kind of agree with is, like, the characters kind of individually, Asuna, the teacher, and Shin, like, individually, they all seem to be kind of maybe like not built the best. They're kind of flawed, and I don't mean flawed characters. I mean like maybe not written as well as they could have been in terms of their motivations, their actions, their thoughts, the character themselves. But as a group, I felt like it generally worked as a group. But individually, that's when you start to look at their individual motives. Maybe that's when it gets a little bit more hazy in terms of like, well, what did they really want? Did it really make sense for any of this, for them to want this or to do this? So I think in a general sense, that's kind of being very general and generic, but I think I tend to agree with that. Like they did work as a group better than they worked individually. I thought they were all
likable characters. And like I said earlier, I felt like their motivations were flimsy, but I didn't have a hard time believing them.
Yeah, it wasn't that they were unbelievable, like this doesn't make sense. It was just more like I wish there was a little bit more to it rather than what was presented was poor.
Here's my final question for you then, is because I actually cannot remember, how exactly does it finally end? Like what happens at the end of the story?
Literally like before the credits. So he puts his wife's soul into Asuna, and then Shin basically goes to break the clavis, which is like the crystal that kind of allows this power to happen. And that was also a thing that I felt like wasn't explained well enough. It was like, how exactly does the clavis thing work?
It's just more magic stuff.
Yeah, but he broke it.
I think they read about that somewhere.
Apparently, he broke it out of desperation, and as soon as he broke it, basically the god's wish started reverting, and then Asuna had her body back. The wife disappeared. Guy lost his eye, or it made it look like he was blind, but I don't think he was actually blind. He was just like lost an eye, and that was literally the ending. Like, it ended on that note.
Then they just walked out, didn't they?
They basically just kind of walked out. If I remember the ending credits right, it basically implied that Shin stayed in Agartha and the other two left. Like, there's no, like, it kind of, in a sense, kind of returned to status quo. Like, it's not like one of them decided to leave their homeland and, be changed forever. It seemed like, Shin stays in Agartha, the other two from the upper world go back home. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else, but it was just kind of like, it was really kind of like an adventure. And once it's over, it's over. It wasn't nothing. I don't want to say like nothing changed, but it kind of gives you the feeling it was more about the adventure than the journey. Because at the end, ultimately, nothing was accomplished. But that's not the point. Yeah. That kind of is the point, that nothing was accomplished.
Like, there was no flash forward at the very end or anything.
Yeah. Oh, they showed. It was one of those things, like, it didn't really mean anything, but they showed Asuna.
Oh yeah, that's
graduating
right.
School.
She graduated. That's right.
But that's not. It wasn't like anything like thing with Shin or anything like that. It's just like, now she's back to her normal life. And I guess that might have been kind of the point. Was like, it made it feel like this was an adventure, and the adventure was the adventure. Like, there was no end goal, or the end goal like didn't matter. Like, nothing changed. It went back to status quo. The teacher, probably learned the ultimate lesson that, unfortunately, you can't bring people back from the dead. But like, that's kind of it. Like, I don't want to say it was pointless, like nothing happened, but it was all about the adventure.
Well, nothing changed in the sense that the world wasn't revelatorily altered because of this adventure.
Well, they just
literally acted like nothing had happened.
Well, also that nobody's, like, even like each individual character, like, it was just like, this wasn't like a life-changing. Well, it didn't like specifically change the status of things. Like, I guess I keep saying status quo, but like Shin apparently, if I remember the credits right, it just they kind of gave a hint that he might be outcast because he was sympathetic to outsiders, but it wasn't. Nothing seemed to come of that. Like,
the only other thing I'll say. Oh, go ahead.
No, actually, I don't even know what I want to say. So go ahead.
Okay. The only other thing I'll say that just felt really weird to me about this, and I know this is not a big deal or doesn't matter, but it's so strange that he drew Asuna and all the other high school kids looking so young. Like, Asuna was like, she looked like she was 4 feet tall.
Yeah.
And she looked like she was like 11 or 12 years old, but apparently she's like 15 or 16.
Yeah, she looked like Hachin from Ichiko and Hachin, which I think she was like 11. I mean, maybe a little bit older than that, but like not much. So I assume they were like middle school.
Well, I think that's it. Yeah, they were graduating from middle school, but I mean, like, I thought they were in grade school. That's how young they were drawn, and it was just really odd. And her voice was super high pitched, and like, I mean, obviously all teenage anime girls have very high-pitched voices, but hers were especially of that high pitch that sounded like a little girl, like a very young girl. And I would have been fine if that was her age, but then to have it revealed at the very end that she's like 16, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It was weird.
Now, I think also it's like all the students in the class look like that. Like, I actually, kind of personal story, I actually taught at a high school about a year ago for a while, and some of the students, especially if they're like freshmen, they can look really young, like younger than you might think. Yeah.
Maybe I'm too old and I just don't, that's not how I remember it.
Well, no, but I mean, it's just that every character looked really young. I mean, I'm talking about, it's like sometimes characters seem
and
like
they kind of acted it too. Like, she was maybe more naive than she should have been. That's, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but she kind of felt she wasn't wise of her years that much. She was kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think I know what you mean. Like, I felt like she had a hard time like explaining her opinions and thoughts. Like she was really like, it seemed like almost unnaturally like quiet,
Yeah.
and it almost felt like maybe like, I don't know, when I think of like a high school person, like that's like when you really start to like form like, you know,
Well, they'll have
her
a personality by then, and she felt like she was still figuring out who she was.
Like, yeah, it's hard to explain, but I feel like she had the personality that kind of made it seem like she was younger than she was. Like she was kind of very timid. Like when I think of really young children, or maybe around like that 10-year age, 10 or 11 or 12, like they're maybe a little bit more timid than they are in high school. And she just, I think the combination of her look, her personality, and her English voice, I have no idea what she sounded like in Japanese. I think the combination of those things made it seem like she was younger than she actually apparently is. So.
Yeah, but just to finish up here, I'll say that it ultimately doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't affect the story in any way outside of the fact it's strange that she's graduating at the end. That's it. I mean, like I could have gone the whole movie, and it's never, her age is never revealed. It's just,
and it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's just.
I looked it up on Wikipedia out of curiosity, so that's the only reason I knew it. So.
Also, I don't think this was ever mentioned specifically either, but I noticed that the mom used a rotary phone. The car she was driving looked old-fashioned, and just like the classroom itself. One person mentioned the hairstyle. Maybe this was not set in modern day, but maybe a couple of decades ago. One of the Metatron in the thread said it might have just been that they're in rural Japan, which apparently there's a pretty stark contrast in like just tech that's available, and just.
I guess I hadn't noticed that.
But like, I know someone else in the thread actually mentioned it when I was thinking of it. Like, I wonder what year this is set in. But yeah, they showed a rotary phone. The car that the mom was driving, it seemed like it was set in the 70s or 80s instead of like modern day. It ultimately didn't matter, but it was just kind of one of those interesting things.
Yeah, that was interesting. So overall, I think it was a very beautiful movie. It didn't wow me in the story, but it was pleasant, and I liked looking at it.
Yeah, like I said this to start off with, I felt like it had some good ideas and good framing, but it starts to get a little bit loose. I don't want to say fall apart, but it kind of starts to like, it's not quite as believable. You know, when you start looking at the details, like in terms of character motivations, rules of this world, and things like that, when you start to look at the details, it starts to get a little bit, you know, maybe this should have been fleshed out more. Maybe they should have been detailed in a different way. But I think the general idea and plot progression was fine. So I'm glad I saw it. You know, it was kind of nice to get. I mean, the timing wasn't great in terms of starting at 3 a.m., but it was kind of nice to have something different than the usual lineup that we normally have. So that was nice.
Yeah.
Grex, are you still here?
Yep.
Were you listening to anything we said?
No.
We like the movie.
Cool. I guess that's it then. This has been episode 30 of the ToonamiGAF podcast. Thank you, C. Kohler.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Seda. Seda?
Am I supposed to say something? You are welcome.
Okay. News we forgot to say. Young Justice finally got its 3rd season.
Oh, yeah. Oh. That's not coming to Toonami.
I know, but
expensive.
It's certainly a thing.
An American... I think we talked before about American action cartoons. It seemed like they were dead. Samurai Jack was like the only one on the horizon. So it's nice that here's another American action cartoon brought back from the dead. So.
Give me Teen Titans Season 6. I would just die. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Later.